The principle will ruin your life. I am extending this idea from last video regarding how the mind can play tricks on you into believing things that aren't real, into making you believe things that don't exist, that it's sweeping you up in its cinema in the mind, that it's so captivating. Your mind is so captivating. All of these thoughts that it's throwing in your face, that you as the observer believe are your own. The principle will ruin your life. So I wanted to make this because this is another, I guess you could call it, feature of the mind that makes your experience of reality way less enjoyable. This feature is responsible for creating fury and anger and frustration, and it really can turn you into someone that people don't like. So I want to kind of bring your awareness to it so you can maybe not let it take control, so you're not as susceptible. The principle will ruin your life. The reason I say it will ruin your life is because if you don't catch it early, it's an addictive state when the mind is angry. Like, the mind loves being angry. And the more you're angry, the more it reinforces the feeling of anger. The more you feel angry, the more it reinforces. It's like a never-ending cycle. So if you don't catch it early, you will just transform over years into this person who seeks out anger. And let me explain why. What do I mean by the principle when I say the principle will ruin your life? What I'm talking about is, and before I get to that, do you like my new haircut? What I'm talking about is the what ifs, the hypotheticals, the principle of what is going on rather than what is actually going on. Let me give you a raw example from my life. Okay, so I took my car to the mechanic, as everyone does. And, they've come back and they're like, it's going to cost you half of what the vehicle is worth, right? So in my mind, it's like, that's a lot of money to charge someone for a thing you can get off eBay for like a tenth of the price. Anyway, at the end of the day, I'm in a position where I can afford to just pay them. But here I am, the mind is like grabbing onto it and being like, it's not right. It's the principle of the fact that they're way overcharging me. It's the principle of that. But at the end of the day, I have the means. I mean, it's not that much money. It's just that the idea of it. It's the idea of being overcharged that really infuriates you. It's the principle of someone not being fair. This happens to everyone all the time, where things just aren't fair sometimes. Life isn't a meritocracy. People don't always, most of the time, they don't get rewarded on how hard they work. they get rewarded on these things that a lot of the time people don't have control over, or the things that people don't realize have the most power. Let's take an example. Okay, let's say you're at work and there's a promotion that's coming up. And you know, out of your team, you are the hardest worker there. Out of everyone going for this promotion, you know you are the hardest worker. You know you deserve this. But then you don't get that promotion. Someone else gets that promotion. And to you, that's not fair. That's not fair. And so your mind grabs onto that idea of the fact that it's not fair. And it fills you with anger and bitterness and frustration. Yeah, depending on, it happens at different levels. Some people get really angry with injustice. Other people find, it's not too bad. Either way, your mind grabs onto that and it finds itself very difficult to let go. If you aren't aware of that, then you think that you are this angry person. It's almost like you begin identifying with this angry person, that I am angry. But you are not angry, you are not frustrated. You are experiencing these feelings. You are observing these feelings. They are not you, they are not the awareness, your true self. And then, you find out that they got promoted because they're better at public speaking. They don't work hard, but they're just better at communicating. And because they're better at communicating, everyone thinks that they do work hard because they can communicate ideas effortlessly. They can talk to everybody comfortably. They can get up in front of everybody like that. So they are perceived to be more intelligent, even though you are the hard worker. And the idea of that, the principle of that, it's the principle that they didn't get hired because of their hard work. They got hired because of some other skill. That really can take control of you. And so, what do we do with this information? How can we begin to let go of this idea of the principle? Well, let me explain how. This is what I'm discovering. I'm a human being and I experience these things all the time. What I notice is that when I start indulging in the principle, in the fact that that mechanic is gonna scam me, they're charging way too much. In my mind, it feels like they're stealing from me, even though they're not. They're not stealing, they're doing their job. But part of me thinks that they're stealing from me, that they're scamming me. It's the principle. They're being unfair to me. That feeling is deeply rooted in us, in our body. Because back in the day, in our tribes, hunter-gatherer times, we lived in little tribes. If people were unfair to us, that could cost us our lives. We could literally die. Now, because of evolution, because of the survival of the fittest, the people who never experienced this anger towards injustice, those people they never fought back for their life. Because of that, they got wiped out because of natural selection. It's the people that have this feeling of anger, of frustration towards injustice that fight back for their own survival. That's how they continue to populate and reproduce. And that is why that feeling carries through within us today. Because of that, society has evolved so much faster than what we have psychologically, in our biology. That makes us incredibly susceptible to these feelings of rage, when really we don't need to feel that. They were there, they were coded in our DNA so we can survive, so we don't die, and so we can continue to reproduce. When we feel those feelings today, for the most part, most of the time, our lives and our safety, our physical well-being, most of the time, they're not affected. We're not going to die. Like, if I pay this mechanic twice as much as what he's asking, I'm not going to die. Like, I'm not going to die. Even if it's my entire life savings, I can still work and survive. I will not die. The part of our brain that's responsible for that is the amygdala. And so our brain, our mind, it begins to feel this feeling of rage because the fight, flight, or freeze response within the amygdala has been activated. It's been triggered. And so it gets expressed through these thoughts. Our mind is very cunning and very smart, and so it tries to create a narrative in our mind that's so captivating that we just believe it regarding the outside world, regarding our reality, as to why we are feeling this feeling. People don't realize, I'm feeling this because part of my brain thinks I'm going to die. We don't, most of the time we don't even consider that. So, in these moments when you're experiencing injustice, even at a micro level, like, you can get caught up on the most tiny things based on the principle of this, the principle of that. That triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response, and then your brain thinks you're going to die. And it just transforms you into this furious being, harboring anger and resentment. And the more you harbor that, the stronger those neural connections become that trigger that response in the first place. So it's a slippery slope that can be difficult to get out of. But reminding yourself, you're not going to die. That if you can catch it early, your mind is playing tricks on you. You are not going to die. Why am I even, considering the principle of this? Am I going to do anything about it? Not really. Maybe get a quote from a different mechanic. That's about it. Okay, well, if you do that, then why are you continuing to hold on to this rage, this anger towards these people? Doesn't make sense. Like, if you're not going to do anything about it, then it's pointless indulging in these feelings, in these strong emotions. If you are going to do something about it, then just do it. And then what's the point of indulging in these emotions? There's no point. And it really is indulging because the mind loves it. The mind loves it. You know those people in your life that they're always complaining. And it's like, wow, they must have a really hard time living if all of this bad stuff is happening to them. Well, actually, everybody experiences terrible things. But complaining in it, the mind loves that because it pumps you full of emotion and feelings, right? And the mind, it craves feelings of all sorts to reinforce its existence. But if you take a stoic approach, good and bad that happen to you, release judgment. Don't get these positive and negative emotions from the outside world, because that's the mind twisting the things. There's this old Chinese proverb, and I can't remember it word for word, but it's something like, there was this boy working in the field on his horse, and the horse bucked him off and he broke his leg. And then he went to his dad and was like, "Dad, I broke my leg, now we can't farm." The dad's like, "Yeah, we'll see," not commenting whether it's good or bad. And then, the army comes along wanting to draft soldiers for this terrible war. And they're like, "You've got a broken leg, we can't draft you." And then the son's like, "Dad, I missed the draft, I'm not going to die in war." And then the dad's like, yeah, we'll see. Not as in he's releasing judgment, all this good and bad things. So it's like, the Stoics, they realize that the good and the bad that we feel, the positive and negative emotions, they don't come from these external realities that are inherently good or bad. We place judgment. We place judgment on these images, on these experiences that make us feel good or that make us feel bad. It's the mind again. It's the mind judging it and throwing these thoughts up onto the cinema screen inside your mind. To fully summarize, because this has been quite a random ramble, I have been noticing within myself that sometimes these strong negative emotions arise simply through the principle of something when my safety, my health is not in danger, is not at risk at all. And so when I realize that, in those moments, all of that anger just fizzles out. It's almost like your mind is... It's almost like your mind is playing this movie, like I said in the last video, of what it wants you to feel, and that when you realize that it is doing that you as the observer can see what's going on, and you realize, I'm actually not in any physical danger, then the lights in the cinema go up, and the projector stops projecting, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm just existing. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. Kind of a shorter-ish video. I would love your thoughts on the idea of the principle of things and how it can really manipulate your emotions and feelings without you even realizing it's a sneaky, sly little trickster the mind is. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment below, and I'll see y'all in the next video.